Is it on? No. Hello? No. Do you know, is it this one that needs to be on?
Yeah, I don't see the switch. Oh, yeah. Oh, found it.
Hey, with our powers combined.
Hey, there we go.
All right. Put this over here. There you go.
Great. Hello, once again. A couple of housekeeping before Jared opens the meeting. First of all, if you tamales last week, they are over on that table over there for pickup. So please pick up your tamales. And thank you to everybody that brought a dish for lunch today. And your dishes will be ready for pickup in the kitchen after the meeting. That's it.
With all these chords, it feels a bit like my be able to have a session, record a movie, maybe Napster. I'm dating myself. Can we get another round of applause to Doreen, to Ian, and to Maddie? What a fun way to begin our annual meeting with some to be in conversation. Know that Ernie and Betty Ashcroft auction and then donated it for the entertainment for today. So thank you. Your dish. Thank you for that point of clarity. While we're on gratitudes, every year this party emerges of members, which we're deeply grateful for, but also our committee. And this week, it sort of parceled out different members of that committee to steer and champion. Susan Creel was the one who is the mastermind behind today. Marks her 1 anniversary. So thank you. And in this deliciousness, we are all now fetid and full. 2 final thank yous before we move on. We on staff each year get through this and the week after and think, okay, maybe not everyone, maybe just those of us with ritual amnesia. Go, I made it. It's coming. Thank you. So I hope you have a chance to read Mark having a annual report. Unless words in the library, it'll be open source. So, but there were people who won. I heard you say flowers and chocolate. Yes, Craig about that. I'm sure he'll make good on it. Thing. I want to acknowledge the team of people that I'm privileged to serve with our staff. If you're on staff at St. John's, yes. What a talented and you may know that and for staff, we do actually have fun together. We will do some more gratitude outgoing leaders in a little while. let us now call this meeting to order. We are in session. I hope those of you who are joining on our live stream are as well, and we look forward to engaging you as well in the chat. Are there any motion to approve has been moved? Is it seconded? Is there any information about making sure that we are keeping minutes have been approved? Thank you so much. That ends my time with you. No, I'll be back in a moment. But we are at time of the annual meeting. Rick Rinkoff's report. This year comes
I got to warn you, it's not going to be as entertaining and scintillating as before. And Don Weinkoff already accused me of being a Debbie Downer. But I'll try anyway. Well, that was good. So, good morning. 2024 was a great year for the stock market. Fortunately, much of our endowment is invested in stocks, which is why the value increased more than $1 million, of which we withdrew $328,000 to support the overall St. John's budget. The stock market was driven by excitement over artificial intelligence, AI. ChatGPT, big name in AI. Its parent company is worth $157 billion, so I decided to see what $157 billion would get us. I asked them to write a treasurer's report. Here is an abbreviated version of what $157 billion will get you. All right, you got to pretend that I'm a computer. Good morning, brothers and sisters in Christ. It's both an honor and a privilege to stand before you as a treasurer of our church. My role is to ensure that every dollar given is used in accordance with the values and mission of our church. The church experienced a challenging year. We ended the year with a deficit of $24,000. Despite the deficit, we've been able to fund our ministry, to maintain our for those in need. As we move forward into 2025, we're facing new opportunities and challenges. The budget for 2025 maintains balanced operations, supports our ministry's core, continues to serve the community. Forecasted. I want to end by faith and the count. Just like me, doesn't it? Why the deficit? Discretionary giving fell short. Revenue. People who contribute money. They could be slow workers. Commitment. Each year we make an educated guess was way too high. We budgeted a slower number for 2025. There was also a minor shortfall in pledge income. Some people passed away, some encountered financial or pastoral challenges, some left the parish, and I suspect some just were actually slightly under budget for the year, so the deficit was entirely due to the revenue shortfall. While I am not thrilled to report a deficit, I respect the wisdom of Warren Buffett, who says, don't worry about the income, worry about the outcome. And with that perspective, I suspect that Jared will tell us we did just fine. I put in a plug here for concentrating pledge payments early in the year. Our expenses are fairly through the year, and when people wait to make late, I'm going to talk about the Street finance. Capital. There was good news and bad news. Here, unanimous agreement that there's work is conservative. The good news. But there was also, as I put it, financial leadership is different. Specific feedback included. Some people do not feel I understand the finances of St. John's. Some people don't like how the money is spent. Some people believe St. John's owns the money and property. Matters is like you. There's a strong perception that the congregation is wealthy, coming from generations of class and race-based. Worst, between the corner. Organization. We're not about the money. The says God has, Barbara has preached, God worked. Mission. Our money, it's your call. What's behind? Every year we have an independent auditor, Olson. $67, 27 for non-discretionary expenses in our pledge to ECMS. Percentages are in line with previous years. I want to maintain operating expenses keep escalating with inflation. Ministry spending appears relatively small in the budget, but is significantly understated with dollars in restricted funds for various ministries. The revenue side of the 25 budget breaks down like this. 3% from all other two ways. So let's address concerns of Cornerstone Trust. The listening survey. Place. It's typically 60. By a 12-quarter moving average. The Paul Myers Trust, that's a fixed, an outside party. Have a fiduciary lifetime. 2014. By investment research firm Morningstar agreed, and a 3% probability of not running out of money. We've been using 4.25% draw rate, and 5% when you include the fee we pay for management. Draw. Bring it. Solution. Came into the Cornerstone Trust. Help St. John's is through our capital campaign. Horribly wrong with it. sidewalk, I mean. Evans over there to assess how much it would cost to maintain our building for years. The study recommended that we buy $100,000 a year and increase it by inflation every year. It's about time to identify that Dave Briscoe, the treasurer, and he will take over at some point, probably next week. He's the last year alone. Responsibility are turn it over to Jared. Are there any questions? I'm leaving right away. Thank you.
You are a tough fellow. So I've been instructed to say just a quick word about vote. Please note that the bylaws indicate that communicants in good standing are anyone over 16 years of age and who are a giver of record and an attender of record at St. John's. So if you are a member in good standing, when we vote again, please know then you are allowed, and please are encouraged to vote. Did I cover it well there, boss? Okay. You'll notice also that we have time stamps on our agenda. That's just to keep, Rick, you did a great job, but to keep me in line here. It is a pleasure and a privilege to be your rector going into this now. Next year will be my 15th year. 14 years serving with you has been one of the great treasures of my life, and it has been a blessing. So thank you for that rare privilege to be among you this long. God of grace and God of glory, on thy people pour thy power. Grant us wisdom, grant us courage for the facing of this hour. These were the words written in 1930 by the Reverend Harry Emerson Fosdick, penned for the founding of the famous Riverside Church in Morningside Heights, where he was a pastor, a congregation that became, like him, a vocal champion of the social gospel, in many ways intersectional, and most notable for the time, interracial. This hour the church was facing fell smack between two world wars at the threshold of the Great Depression, and as fascism was beginning to rear its ugly head around the globe. It was, to be sure, a bleak hour. But Fosdick knew that the church had within its deep reservoirs of wisdom and experience the toolkit and the resources for just such a moment, and believed that our God was always ready and willing to give God's very self to and for the church, to accompany and bless it in the work of faithfulness in this and every hour of trial. From the fears that long have bound us, free our hearts to faith and praise, grant us wisdom, grant us courage for the living of these days. We sang this hymn, maybe you remember, last Sunday at the closing of worship, quite by happenstance, because Richard, our planful director of music, picks our hymns well in advance. And little did he anticipate how prescient, how like holy synchronicity it might feel to sing these words on the eve of the inauguration last week. As when the hymn was written, today we desperately need God's grace and glory in the life of the church and especially in our nation. In the last week alone, we saw the rolling back of civil rights, the undoing of legal protections for so many vulnerable people, and the rhetoric of fear and hate being used to diminish the dignity of so many groups of people by our new president and his administration. This kind of destructive power is always possible from our elected leaders, and that is why back in the fall of 2024, St. John's Vestry Stewardship Committee, staff, and clergy helped to guide us all on a journey of discernment toward how we would use and how we could be a faithful congregation on the first day after the election for the living of these days. What we created, you may recall, was our Day One plan for St. John's. That plan helped to shape our parish budget for 2025, approved by the vestry last week and presented to you today, which Rick has just unveiled the mysteries of. The 2025 budget, among many things, ensconced our values articulated in the Day One planning process. Values like love, inclusion, healing, justice. And I encourage you to return to it. It is housed on our website, and it will guide us in the year ahead, not only in the budget, but in the choices and decisions we make. And it reflects back our priorities of deep care for those who stand most ready to be hurt as a result of the election in 2024. The Day One plan and the budget that it shapes recognizes that the living of these days requires two interconnected responses from the church. First, we are called to direct support for and with vulnerable groups and individuals. Where possible, this year's budget maintained our strong support for Faith in Action ministries, but also relies heavily on those designated funds. Things like housing, healthcare, and hunger relief. It bolstered our migrant support ministry and anticipated the continuation of our robust women's spiritual life, the resuming of our LGBTQ+ spiritual life group, and underscored our historic support of children's and youth ministries, just to name a few. And second, the budget also recognizes the fundamental work of the church is the formation of a people who are healed, courageous, faithful, and capable of radical care and resistance. In this way, our budget continues to prioritize generous support for the ministry leaders who guide our essential programs of worship and faith formation, outreach and pastoral care, member engagement, and all other things that we deem so vital to the work of the church in this and every age. You will find that we are recommitting to another year of Fourth Sunday Racial Reconciliation and Healing Eucharists, and to the work of our new evangelist for spiritual healing, Marjorie Grevious. The year ahead, our resources of time and talent and treasure are being directed toward care for one another and the most vulnerable in our communities, and toward strengthening our life as disciples, so that the whole church, each and every one of us, is equipped to stand up for justice, to seek peace, and to be better able to respect the dignity of every human being. As if that weren't enough, St. John's is also, as Rick mentioned, engaged in the work of exploring a possible capital campaign. That process, too, is being done with an eye toward the same values that we captured in our Day One process and plan, and that are ensconced in our annual budget. We began the process with a spirit of inclusion and listening, capturing as many voices as wanted to be heard, to be sure that we recognize what was in the heart and mind of our faith community when considering this valuable resource of our buildings and our grounds. There is a lot that could be said about a possible capital campaign. Rick has said some of it already, and time is of the essence, I'm told, so I'll spare all the details. But if you explore the projects that are described in the case statement that was sent out, in our current feasibility study, and a reminder, get your surveys in, people, the 30th is coming. You will see that in several components, The priorities are how we can be better partners with our wider community, creating space where Big Wonder, Artaria, and 12-step groups, arts and theaters groups, and many, many more can do their vital and essential work in this space. You will notice that there is care and consideration for how St. John's faces and engages with the wider community through our building and out our doors, and how we bring folks into this place, how we connect together inside this building and grow together as a people of faith. It has consideration, too, for how we tend this valuable resource for generations to come. In the listening phase, as was already mentioned, our consultants helped us unearth not only our priorities and our goals, but also recognize the ways that our money narratives might stand between us and a more full embodiment as a people of faith, of our faith. You see, money narratives here merely mean how we've been shaped to think about and talk about money. These stories about money individually and collectively are a powerful force shaping our lives and our witness as a people of faith. When we talk about money, the world is listening. Is our money ours or the community's or God's, as Rick asked? Or how do we invest and spend it? On ourselves, on others? What does generosity look like when we consider the money we've been entrusted with? What does faithfulness look like? To be clear, St. John's is a generous community. Look at your stewardship report. I know that the summary of it is that we are only raising what we did last year, but what we did last year was a monumental achievement in the life of this church in fundraising. And to achieve it again with the headwinds we faced was significant. Many, many gifts, both large and small, enabled us to pass a balanced budget for 2025. And that includes the generosity from the trust. But we are also, as has already been pointed out today, a community of great wealth and privilege. And like other communities of wealth and privilege, we have, at times, behaved selfishly and fearfully, without a spirit of courage and hopefulness when it comes to our money. This is ongoing work for us. We're never perfect at it. It's okay to admit when we fall down. And it is this work that I believe is most essential, especially as we embark on a process of raising even more money. There is no doubt that St. John's can raise the necessary resources to accomplish the mission God is calling us to in this moment as in the past. I've never doubted, and I'm sure many of you haven't either, that this place always rises to the challenge. There is great generosity here. But my prayer and my commitment as your rector is to do all in my power to ensure that we do this fundraising and all the things we do together in ways that reflect our faith in the abundance of a good and generous God and our memory of the provision that God has given in ages past, so that we may not be, as Fosdick's hymn says, rich in things, but poor in soul. Finally, you may be wondering, you're standing up here to say the state of the church. What is the state of the church? Well, I commend the whole annual report to you, which you do need to read. It is wonderful how much is happening here. To see all of that abundant and generous giving and action, what Christian discipleship and faithfulness we have achieved together in the year past. Look at the stewardship report, the faith in action accomplishments, the new member report, pastoral care, formation, CYF, and so much more. We did a lot last year. And we did it faithfully and with great joy. The church is thriving, and it is growing, and in the year ahead, it is our aim to grow even more, to share with and invite others into an encounter with a loving, liberating, and life-giving God in and through this community of faith. This past year, several of you joined our church, and many cited the need to find a faith community especially attuned to the work of justice, care for the vulnerable, healing of creation, and connecting more deeply in community bound together in God's love. Many of our newest members, in short, named the Day One process as a big part of why they came to St. John's. So, the year ahead will stay steady to that course. We will be embarking on a significant process of invitation, a process that will require all of us. That will include you sharing with others what this church is up to, not being ashamed or embarrassed about the good news that is happening in and through this place, and inviting and encouraging folks to join us in the vital work of justice, discipleship, and faithful innovation that our bishop has called us to. We will strengthen our spiritual life communities, deepen our pastoral care of one another, and find new ways to join in the work of advocacy and activism. If you're interested in helping the church grow, not only in faithfulness and spiritual vitality, but with new and diverse members, as we did in the year past, please speak to me or to Dr. Judy Stack. We've got a lot of work to do, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I imagine that we'll want a growing community of new and longtime members in the year ahead, working together for the glory of God. While there will be challenges to the church, and we've heard some of them named today, both within and without in the year ahead, I am deeply confident that we will rise to meet them with God's help, so that we may sing out all the more, "Save us from weak resignation to the evils we deplore. Let the gift of your salvation be our glory evermore. Grant us wisdom, grant us courage, serving you whom we adore." Faithfully submitted on this, the January 26th annual meeting of 2025, your rector, Jared Weber Johnson. And I'll give you 2 minutes because Rick only gave one. So just to win in that category, questions or comments for either Rick or myself or the vestry or each other? I'm glad it answered all the questions. It's wonderful. Then we move right along. All right. So we have now the election of new leaders, and for that, allow me to turn in our agenda to our slate of candidates, found on page, someone beats me there, shout it out, 25. So we will elect our wardens each separately. They will be standing each for a second one-year term. Betty Ashcroft as senior warden and Bob Bauman as junior warden. Keep in mind we do this each year and they renew their commitment over the course of 4 years to be wardens. We'll start with Betty Ashcroft, our senior warden. Do I have a nomination to approve her as our senior warden for a one-year term? And a second? Second. Please indicate your support by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Thank you, and thank you, Betty, for another year of service to St. John's. And over in the back, serving quietly in the distance, our junior warden, Bob Bauman. Wave your hand, Bob. Do I have a nomination for the approval of Bob Bauman for another year as junior warden? So moved and seconded? It's been seconded. Any comment or conversation? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Thank you, Bob, and another year of ministry. As a point of privilege, every time we elect new wardens or the same wardens for another year, I give thanks because at St. John's, our well of leadership is deep and rich, and it has been such a privilege to serve with these two. Now we have a slate of candidates, which I believe we can approve the whole slate of candidates. Is that right? Thank you. All right, so the slate of candidates for our vestry in a 3-year term will be Lynn Hertz, a familiar face to vestry, coming back to be our liaison for welcome and connection. Lynn, are you in the room? Wave your hand. There she is. We will be voting on Edwin Schenk, who will be coming to serve as our liaison for children, youth, and family ministry. Edwin, there you are. Dan Vogel will be coming on board to serve as our liaison for at-large, but is also an active member in a number of different ministries, so you'll get to find out more about all the things he's doing in his bio. And then Tamara Zurkowski. Where's Tamara? There she is. Tamara Zurkowski, who will be our liaison for liturgy. This slate of candidates is submitted. Is there a motion to approve the slate? It's been so moved. Any seconds? It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I have a question.
Yes.
Is the welcome and connection liaison, is that like a new position for the vestry, or?
It has been a position, so each ministry at St. John's, in theory, could be a liaison position on vestry up to 12 people. There are more than 12 ministries. And so in various seasons of the life of this church, we have worked really hard to maintain certain key committees having a liaison at vestry. Welcome and Connection has come and gone from vestry at various points when there's been somebody who is serving on that ministry willing to be on vestry. And in this season, particularly as we embark on a project of growth and member connection, it felt really relevant to have a leader. And so there was hard work within that committee to nominate someone. Does that answer?
Yes, thank you. But I want to comment that Tamara not only has all the colors for the liturgy, but she also has a great big actor, given that she's something to wear.
Yep. We don't bring false gods into this conversation. But it's going to be great to work with you tomorrow. I'm just really looking forward to it. It's been moved and seconded. Blasphemies have been uttered. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Tomorrow, this is your chance to like I'm out. Any abstentions? Thank you, slate of candidates. May we give thanks for them. And then, as Rick mentioned, we also elect from this body our Cornerstone trustees. It is important to note that the Cornerstone Trust is a separate entity, and it is set up intentionally and legally to do that, but the members of this congregation also serve as leaders on the trust. And so this year, Jim is standing for a new 3-year term, and it has been submitted by the Cornerstone Trustees and Finance Committee. Any motion to approve? Any second? Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, Jim. I know he's joining us online or virtually or in the spirit. That concludes the election of new members. Were there any comments from online that we need to enter into the record? Good secretary or executive administrator who's monitoring? All good in the comments, great. All right, well, then we move on to the gratitudes portion of our meeting, and for that, our senior warden, recently elected a moment ago, will come forward to offer gratitudes. Please welcome Betty Ashcroft.
All right. Thank you, everybody. It's my honor and my privilege to offer the gratitudes on behalf of the Vestry of St. John's. For the record, the Vestry recognizes with gratitude the vision, the leadership, and the ministry of our deacon, the Reverend Chelsea Stanton, who's not here with us today, but you do need to recognize her work here. This year, several members of the vestry are retiring or have retired from service or are reaching the end of their 3-year term. And so on behalf of the vestry, I'd like to ask that if you hear your name to please come up and receive a little bit of honor from our community. John Doherty, Paige Hagstrom, Eliza Lundberg, and Rihanna Matter. Thank you so much for all of your service to St. John's. Let's give them a round of applause. Rihanna, I will hang on to hers. Okay, I have one more thing to do as we prepare to close out our 2025 annual meeting, and that is to remember our loved ones, those whom we've lost in the last year, their gifts, and the many ways that they've cared for this community. Janice Phelps, Barrick Christensen, Jim Anderley, Jim Linden, Philip Baird, Fred Morrison, the Reverend Dr. Carl Jacobson, Ronald Miller, Ben Johnston Jr., Stuart Snyder, Pat Brentison, Shirley Cooper, and Virginia Ginny Schaus. We give thanks for their life and their ministry with us. All right.
Thank you, Betty. And while I'm sure we'll have occasion to do this again next year, we remember as well today Phyllis Frisbee. We are just needing to confirm there are no new votes. Yes, the online has not changed. Everything is the same as when we stepped aside. Excellent. So please stand. We're going to close in prayer. If you know this one by heart, which I hope you do, please join with me in saying the collect for St. John's. Gracious God, by your love, you have called us to proclaim with joy the good news of your Son. So build us up in the knowledge and love of Christ, that we may welcome all people into this community of faith and show forth our service to you in our service to others through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Go in peace, friends, to love and serve the Lord.